Cleo's story, caring for her mum through treatment for cervical cancer.
So my name is Cleo. I'm from the northwest of England. I have just newly graduated from university. I studied paleoanthropology. So my mum was diagnosed with cervical cancer in 2022, and I cared for her during that time. My
What
mum
treatment did your
had
mum
some
have?
chemotherapy and she had radiotherapy. She had brachytherapy, which is the one that people tend to speak about quite badly. And she's definitely trying to change people's perceptions of brachytherapy at the moment and sort of change the language that's being used around it. People don't completely know what brachytherapy is going to be like because it's so different to normal radiotherapy because it is internal. My mum's had words used like barbaric and things like that. But that's not really helpful language in terms of brachytherapy. It could be seen as barbaric if you're looking from the outside and you're sat with somebody in their bed and they're receiving treatment for it. But the reality is that it's, as I said, language like that isn't helpful. It doesn't really describe what it's actually like. It only describes what someone might think it could be like for someone.
What kind of tasks did you help your mum with?
So day to day, it was things like what foods my mum could eat changed really regularly. Some days, some things were disgusting to her with the treatment. Some days she could only eat like really specific things. And I think just really basic stuff like being able to just go to the shop like that and just get something new, or sort of thinking of, well, if she likes this right now, maybe she'll like something like this. Just coming up with new ideas all the time. I think just being really attentive. I think like I remember like when my mum was in pain, I would sort of get to know her reactions to pain. So to sort of like day to day, sort of learning her pain medications, what she needs, what kind of pain she's in. It's just some things that you sort of have to pick up over time, and it's not perfect in the beginning, but you do sort of learn to pick it up, and you do sort of start to store the information.
What was it like to care for your mum?
Hard to watch family member go through something that is just so debilitating, especially when you're like my mum, you're very active and you're normally this really happy, fun, friendly person. It's hard you do see them change. You do see it, every day is different. Every day brings a different type of pain or a different type of problem. However, it does bring you closer in a way that you would never expect. It absolutely is. It is an experience that is horrendous at times. I'm not going to say that means that it's better at times. It's just less heavy at times. But I would say caring for my mum was definitely a learned experience, because you learn how much people care for you and how much people care for your mum, and so many people will sort of rally around you to help, and there'll be so many people who give you really kind messages to support you, and you really in that sense does give you a grasp of how many wonderful things are in your life as well, I guess.
What helped you through this time?
I remember thinking how incredible it was that so many people reached out and wanted to help. And the thing is that often you don't take that help because you want to keep sort of, you don't want to burden people with that, do you know what I mean? And that is how it feels. And sort of, I know a lot of mums carers between me and sort of our sort of very close family. We are like a very small, tight-knit family. But it still is really comforting to know how many people like genuinely want to support you, and how loving and caring the people in your life are, and how many incredible friends you have, people who you didn't think would be there for you in that time would be, I guess. I realise that not everybody sort of has those networks and stuff like that, but the thing is that even if you if you're thinking now, like top of your head, like oh my god, I don't have like a huge friend circle, I don't have a huge family, stuff like that. Trust me, there are more people than you would expect who are ready and really willing to give you support where you need. And even if it is just that message of I'm here, there are so many more people than you think who will give that to you. Even if it's not necessarily, sometimes it doesn't have to be to do with your cancer itself. Not everything in your life. I know it seems at the time like everything in life has to revolve around cancer, and you sort of can start to feel like you have become your cancer in terms of your personality and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be. Support can be from other support groups who are to do with things that you're interested in and things like that. And there'll be tons of people who want to support you there who will really appreciate that you're still carrying on with things like your hobbies, things like that. They're always there. There's also it sounds like a really obvious yet inobvious one as well, but even your workplace. Workplaces often have really good support for things like this, and even a lot of colleagues, like happened with my mum, a lot of colleagues and previous colleagues from other workplaces reached out and things like that. I think having a support network of people who were there to care for me so I could care for my mum was absolutely everything.
What did you find difficult?
I think what was really hard was, I think like because cancer rates are so high now, I think often you find, this is really common I think from other people I've spoken to, you can find yourself in a position where you're caring for cancer, but you also know someone else is caring for somebody else who's got cancer, or someone who's passed from cancer. And that was definitely our family experience, and I had friends who were in the same experience at the time, and it can be really, really hard not to compare what you're going through and what they're going through and stuff like that, and it really does make you worry. Really hard to reassure yourself sometimes and be sort of self-reliant and self-soothing, but learning that it sounds daunting, but it actually comes to you quite quickly because it does help. You do learn how to help yourself in those senses, and it is really character building, I guess, to have that.
How are things now?
My mum has had some injuries and sort of health problems as a result of her treatment. So she has a fractured hip, which they're finding so far. So my mum is classed sort of medically as an athlete. So at the moment they're finding that she's having a slightly different recovery than other people would in terms of her hip fractures from Radiotherapy, and they're just staying put. They're not getting better, but they're not getting worse either, which is a really good thing. But the best thing of all is that when she first came out of treatment, my mum couldn't run anymore, which is a big deal for my mum because she was always a runner. But I started running with her, and now we run together. And now she runs about an average 70 miles a week. I don't run that much, but I did a half marathon with her yesterday in the heat. So she's definitely back on her running, a lot happier. Obviously, she went through a lot, and definitely as a family, it's brought us all close together, and we are sort of, getting used to our own new normal, I guess. We go on holiday in the lakes all the time and go hiking and stuff like that, so we're just adapting basically.
Do you have any advice or messages for someone caring for a loved one with cancer?
I would say, from the perspective of someone who's caring for a person with a gynecological cancer, I would say genuinely you can only take everything as it comes. You can only work with the information you have, and although you're going to think about your next steps and what one thing might mean and what could happen all the time, the best thing that you can do for yourself and your own sanity is, as I said before, be present and work with the information that you have now. And things are going to change no matter what way, no matter what direction sort of your family member's prognosis is, things do change, and you're always going to have a different situation. So just adapting one day to the next is the best thing that you can do. And whatever you are doing, even if you feel like you feel helpless and like you can't help personally, you are doing your best, and believe in yourself that you are doing your best, because just because it's not you who it's happening to personally doesn't mean that you're not dealing with it every day. So give yourself a little bit of grace.
Anything else you'd like to share?
That there's a really, I think that there's, and rightfully so, there's so much of an emphasis on how to cope with gynecological cancers if you are the person with the gynecological cancer and you're the one dealing with it. But I would say my advice to people that you don't usually hear very often, and it's not really a spotlight put on it, for people who care for someone with cancer, is you deserve a support network too. You're still dealing with this in some way. It's still within your orbit, this huge sort of, I would say, life event. It is still a life event for you. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's less valid. And I would say nobody ever sort of asked me, like, how are you dealing with this and stuff like that. Like, this now is probably the first time I've ever actually been asked that. And I think people will come to you later in life and sort of say, like, oh, I'm going through this with my family member, but it's very rare that somebody sort of says to you, like, how do you, people say, how do you cope? That's what people say. People say, how do you cope? Not what do you do? And that's the thing, like, there's no spotlight usually that's shed on the actual actions that you take and stuff like that, and how your life changes and how your own sort of how you think about things changes. And I would say, if you are sort of in that position, you are thinking to yourself, no one ever asks me, don't think you're selfish. It's completely fine. It's completely fine to have those questions and to think, why is no one asking me what I'm doing? Like, my entire life's just changed overnight. Like, I know all these new things about cancer that I didn't know before. I know all these new medications, got all this new knowledge I didn't have before. And it's okay to sort of stop for a moment and think, actually, I deserve people who are asking me if I'm okay and how I'm doing, how I'm dealing with things, not just how do you cope. Because it's not just about coping. It's about, you're not just coping with life, you still have a life, it's just different. Keep up your hobbies and get involved with your family members' hobbies, and try and just make life as normal as possible, because it's not normal, but it doesn't mean that, as I said before, cancer doesn't have to be everything. It's so much, and it's got so much gravity to it in your life when it comes into your life, but everything else still goes on, and it can do. It just has to go on in a different way, and you just need to think to yourself, like, how can I readapt my life and my hobbies and what I normally enjoy doing to the situation I'm in now. I know for myself, I had this intense guilt. Like, it's this horrible guilt that even though I wasn't the person who had the cancer, I was still being affected by it. And it's so hard to sort of tell people, I feel so bad about this, when it's not you. So the more we have these conversations where we sort of have the courage to say, I'm not really sure what I need right now, or I do need more support, or I could do with you helping me with this, or just hearing me vent about this, the more that people will sort of have a greater awareness of what kind of help people need, or just not knowing what you need, because that's okay too. And I think that sort of that burden, that sort of guilt that people feel will be alleviated, because it just gives more understanding to people, and it's not like anything about it is wrong. Like, how you feel is completely valid. It's just the more we're aware of it, the more that we can sort of share the experience, stuff like that, and people learn from that. And if it does happen to them, they'll be already equipped with the knowledge that they can reach out and stuff like that. Be very worried. So my back texted me and she said, if you want to talk about it with me, you can. And if you don't, you don't have to. But, and that can change whenever you feel. Like if you feel different in 3 weeks' time, that's fine. Like if you can't reply to a message immediately, that's okay. I'll know that everything's fine unless you tell me otherwise. And I think it was just her laying the cards on the table that whatever version of you is here in the moment, I'll be there for that person, I think was really powerful.